Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA track guides for round number 3, including the nations and the manufacturers race. That is on later today. So the Red Bull Ring in the Group 2 cars, I'm using the Lexus for this guide, and also after we've done this guide we're going to go through to Dragon Trail and the Seaside version in the Group 4 cars. Obviously I'm in Porsche for that, as that's my manufacturer choice for this off-season exhibition season. So for the first track guide at the Red Bull Ring, I decided to use the Lexus. It's a car that I prefer the way it handles, and I think it's going to suit my driving style more. I did try the Nissan here. It's pretty much identically paced. I think it might be fractionally faster. However, though, fast isn't always the best way to go. I think consistent and the handling of the Lexus is the car that I'm going to use for this race. It's got no issues with fuel, obviously, with the way they're doing these races, so you can drive it flat out, and I just prefer the feel of this car. So that's the car that I'm doing this track guide in. I did do a lap that got a 19.6 by running wide on turn 1. However, I went back and did a clean lap for this track guide, and it's a 19.8. so let's go through this lap and run through a track guide. You can see going through the final corner, you want to make sure you get this corner nice and clean, and then accelerating all the way into turn 1. You're looking for the 100 board on the left hand side and braking fractionally short of that 100 board, just about there where that first arrow is. That's where you're going to start braking and downshifting it into third gear and trying to clip the apex of this right hander. You want to try and get your right hand tyre to clip that little yellow curb, but not over it. If you hit that yellow curb, you're going to bounce up and really unsettle the car. So then try and keep it on the track as much as possible. You see I run a little bit wide, but the aim was obviously to keep the right hand tyres on the right hand side of that yellow curb, which pretty much keeps it fairly within the limits. It's a little bit outside, but nowhere near as much as other people have been running. Then going into the next braking zone, you're going to be braking in between the 150 and the 100, maybe a little bit closer to the 100, and braking really heavy down into second gear, then first gear. Try and keep your braking in a straight line, and then start turning in to get a really clean exit from this corner. You want to be pretty much straight when you're getting on the power. You can see a little bit of power, and then once the car's straightening up, full power. Early upshift into second gear, then let second gear rev it out. It will spin up a bit, but you will still accelerate. You see I actually gain on the ghost there from the previous lap that I did. And then going into the next corner, we're going to be braking just before the 100 board again. You can brake fairly late now with these soft tyres, so just before the 100 board, down into second gear again, and try and get this car as tight in on this apex as possible. That's how I like to do this corner. I like to keep it nice and tight on the apex and then get on the power earlier. It enables you to then carry more speed out of the corner. You'll see now, keeping it nice and tight and then on the power really early, and just try and avoid hitting that curb on the left hand side with the left hand tyres, because it can cause an oversteer moment. Now braking just before the 50 board, literally fractions before that 50 board, down into third gear. And again, I like to hug this inside curb for this left hand corner. It's the way I've always done it since the Assetto Corsa, hugging this inside curb and then getting on the power really early. There's a lot of grip on the inside of this corner, that's why I tend to do that line. And then on the power really early upshift into fourth gear, and just let the car run wide, but be careful not to run too far wide onto the gravel. Then up into fifth gear and then back down to fourth gear, and you're going to start lifting pretty much and braking where that first arrow is there and chucking it into this corner. You really want to get that front end gripping into this corner on the power nice and early. Keep the power down, but don't be worried that it's going to run wide. It should grip if you've got that perfect. It can run wide if you carry too much speed, but if you've got it right, it won't run wide at all. Then braking just before the 50 board for these last few corners, a very tricky corner. This is probably the hardest section on the track, down into fourth gear and trying to clip this apex perfectly there, and early on the power again, trying to carry maximum speed into this final corner. And then this is probably one of the hardest corners, because you've got to brake early enough not to run wide out of the corner, but not too early that you don't carry the speed through the corner. It's a real tricky one. You'll see trying to get on the power nice and early, carrying the speed all the way through the exit and over the line for a 1 minute 19.8, and that's a fairly clean lap. I think I could get down to a 19.3 if I track extend quite badly on the first corner, but with my fast lap, I only did a couple of goes at doing that because I wanted to concentrate on keeping the track limits fairly strict, because I learnt my lesson from the GT3 race that was the other day. So this is the lap from the chase camera. I'm going to let's have a little watch of this from the chase camera so we can see the lines that I'm taking, and then we'll go through to the manufacturer's race at Dragon Trail Seaside version. So you can see it really important to get the car straightened up as much as possible. Again, this track is it's fairly similar to the tactics you're going to use for the manufacturer's race. It's all about exit speed, getting the car straightened up and on the power nice and early. Red Bull Ring is all about getting on the power very early. Very similar to tracks like Monza. It's so important to, maximize your exit speeds and grip from corners. As we go through these two left-hand corners, you see these are pretty much opposite versions to the two Lesmos, the way you've got to really attack into the corner and carry the speed out of them, and then you're accelerating out of this corner up into this. This is probably the trickiest corners on this track in my personal opinion. This one isn't that hard, it's just that this really does line it up for your final corner, and the final corner is so tricky to get the maximum out of it. It's not a hard corner to take at standard speed, but if you want to get maximum speed out of it, it is tricky not to run wide. And you see going over line on a 19.8. Then we're going to start the track guide for the manufacturers. Obviously getting a clean exit from that final corner, very important, and carrying maximum speed all the way down to finishing line. For this we're running the super soft tyres, which give a real high amount of grip. Obviously not a massive amount of lap time gain, because this track is more about straight lines. Braking just before the curb, you see in between where the red bit of track there, halfway before the curb starts, start your braking down into third gear. It's very important to try and get a slow in, fast out philosophy for this track. It really does work. Clipping the apex of the curb with your left front tyre just there. Carried a little bit too much speed in. I had to give it a little lift off the throttle before I could get maximum throttle on. You'll see now, if you have a little look at the throttle inputs, a lift there which didn't really want to do. I could have done that with pretty much maximum throttle with these super soft tyres, but you can see how the Ghost starts to pull away there where I didn't maximise the exit speed, so there was a little bit of time to gain there. But then going through this corner again, you've got to be careful not to pick up a penalty there now. Do not run your right front tyre any more over the curb than where that arrow is pretty much, or you will pick up a penalty. Going into the next braking zone, as soon as the car starts drifting to the curb on the left hand side, you're going to get on the brakes and down into second gear. You can see I actually chucked this in a little bit too aggressive. The rear starts to go a bit, but I maintain the power. And you can see I'm coming from a very narrow angle here. I would have rather come from a wider angle and straight line it more. But what I do is I get on the power very early and just keep the power down and hope it would grip and just about get away with that. But obviously I would have rather have come from a wider angle and then carry more speed. You see the Ghost starting to catch me up a bit there where I've made that little error. And then into this corner, down into fourth gear. And you really want pretty much staying in fourth gear, sorry, and then lifting and letting it just coast into this corner. You see how I'm coasting it, no braking, no throttle, and trying to make sure it doesn't go below 110 miles per hour as I clip the apex that curb about 113, 114 miles per hour through the apex, and then accelerating flat out all the way up this hill. You do not need to lift at all through this section. Obviously it's flat out, especially with the super soft tyres. They just grip and keep gripping, and you should have no issue in terms of keeping it flat out through that section with them tyres. Going into the next braking zone, we're going to be looking for the 150 board, braking just past that with these super soft tyres. You see, where we would normally be braking either just short of that 150 or on the 150, we're now braking past it and downshifting into second gear. And again, you've got to try and clip this apex. As you see the 50 board above you on your head, you're going to start turning into the corner and clipping the apex of this curb and on the power very early. Really important again to get the power down early and maximise your exit speed from that corner to carry all the speed now, because you're not lifting now until the final corner. It's completely flat out all the way to the final corner, flat out over the curbs. And I don't hit that curb because I'd rather do this in one sweeping left hand corner. You see, I don't ever put the steering angle back down to the neutral position. It's a constant arc and attacking, trying to skim the wall there and skim the wall on the right hand side and keep maximum speed all the way out the corner and then into your next braking zone, which we're going to be looking for the 100 board. On the left hand side, you can brake pretty much dead on the 100 board with these super soft tyres. I don't like to brake too late because I find it just makes the front end slide, so braking just about on the 100, maybe a fraction short of the 100 board, down into third gear. And I just downshift it into second gear here now, just to try and bite it into the apex a little bit more, as I didn't really have the grip that I wanted. And then early upshift into third gear and try and carry the speed all the way through the corner without lifting off the throttle. You see, you just got to be careful you don't run too far wide on the exit there, because you can pick up a penalty. And we go over the line for a 1 minute 43.3, which isn't an amazing lap. I think there was another 3 attempts at least in that. I could have maybe squeezed into the 42s, but I didn't spend a massive amount of time pushing the time trial. I've done a session on an online session just testing something out as well, so I wanted to do that before without really pushing the online the time trial session too much. We're going to watch this lap now from the chase camera as we watch the Cayman going through the track. You see what I mean by going in a bit too strong there and couldn't get on the power. You see how I really didn't want to run that far wide, and that's where the Ghost starts pulling ahead. And you're going to see probably now how the rear starts to go on me, where I'm a little bit too aggressive on the steering inputs into this corner. You see I really chuck it in, and you see the rear start to slide briefly then, and I didn't. It was a very narrow angle I took through that corner. I would have much rather have took a wider entry point and get more exit speed from that corner. But this corner I did pretty well, carrying quite high speeds through there, 114 miles per hour, 114 miles per hour all the way through there. And then that enables you then, by the time you're at the top of the hill, you're carrying so much more speed than what you would if you wouldn't have carried that speed. Obviously, because it's, again, it's all about the exit speeds from corners, this track. And then into the braking zone, you see just past the 150, clipping the apex on the entry point, pretty much perfect there, and on the power nice and early, getting upshift into third gear, using some of the curb on the left. And it's all about just maximising the track. And you really see now how I avoid the curb on the left hand side and do a long sweeping arc all the way through that corner. It's not, you know, it's one long turn, it's not multiple turns on the steering wheel, because that's when you're going to hit the wall. If you don't do it the perfect way and you have to put like an adjustment in on the steering angle, that's when you're more likely to hit the wall. And this wall is going to absolutely destroy races at this track, because with the heavy damage on, it's all about going to be, you know, keeping it consistent, keeping it away from the walls, and trying to get to the end of this race with no damage. Really going to be so important to do that, and I think that's going to be the main thing, you know, through that section of track. If you don't feel confident at pushing, try and make sure you keep it clean, because if you hit that wall, that's going to be your race over, because you're going to be going about 120-30 miles per hour, hitting the wall at that speed. You're going to get engine damage, and that's going to be race over for you, because you're going to have to pit and get it repaired. So bear that in mind with your strategy that you're going to run. I'm going to be taking quite a risky strategy for this track, and I'm just going to hope it works. I don't know if it will. It's going to be risky, but I think, you know, this is an off season. It's there to try things out. It's there to see what happens and to try different things. So I'm going to be trying something different to see what happens, and let's hope it works. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Leave any comments if it's helped you out in the comment section below, and let me know if, you know, if it's improved your times, if it's helped you out in the race. It'd be great if it gets you a win in a race and stuff like that. So subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Click the notification button so you don't miss any future videos, and I'll be back very soon with more GT Sport content. Thanks again, everyone.